Her daughter's belly grew, she checked the camera, and the mother discovered what happened with the neighbor.
Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
Since her husband passed away, Maria's 12-year-old daughter, Lauren, has been her everything. But lately, Lauren hasn't been the same. Maria walked into the kitchen, where Lauren was sitting at the dining table. The oversized school uniform couldn't hide the unusually large bump on Lauren's stomach. "Have you finished eating?" Maria asked, trying to mask the worry in her voice. "Yes, Mom," Lauren replied, but her eyes avoided Maria's. Maria glanced at the plate of food, almost untouched. A sense of unease swelled in her chest. Lauren wasn't eating much, seemed increasingly tired, but refused to explain what was happening. After breakfast, Maria walked Lauren to the gate. As Lauren disappeared down the street, their neighbor, Matthew, appeared across the road, smiling as he held a bag of bread. "Good morning, Maria. Your daughter is growing up so fast. I see her going to school every day, she's such a good girl," Matthew said, his gaze seemingly probing. Maria gave a strained smile and said nothing. Matthew lived alone and often stopped by to chat. Though he always appeared friendly, Maria couldn't shake the strange feeling she got every time they interacted. That night, Maria lay restless in bed. The wind howled through the window, whispering warnings she couldn't quite grasp. Suddenly, a strange noise came from Lauren's room. Maria jumped up and hurried to the door. "Lauren, what are you doing?" Maria knocked, but there was no response. She tried the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. Her worry deepened. She pressed her ear to the door and heard faint sounds, like someone's footsteps. "Are you okay, Lauren? Open the door for me." Maria tried to keep her voice calm. A few seconds later, the sound of the lock clicking broke the tension. Lauren opened the door, her face pale as though she had just experienced a panic attack. "Mom, I just dropped something." "It's nothing," Lauren said quickly, avoiding Maria's gaze. Maria scanned the room. Everything seemed normal, but she couldn't dismiss the gnawing feeling of unease. Something wasn't right. The next day, Maria met her close friend Rose while working at the bakery. Rose sipped her coffee and asked, "How's Lauren these days? She doesn't look very well." "I'm not sure," Maria sighed. "She says she's just tired, but I feel like something's wrong. I saw her at the market with Matthew the other day." "Didn't she tell you?" Rose asked. Maria looked up, surprised. "What did you say?" "Lauren was with Matthew?" "Yes. They looked quite friendly, but I thought it was odd. You should keep an eye on that." This revelation haunted Maria. Why would Lauren be with Matthew without telling her? That day, when Maria came home early, she heard unfamiliar footsteps in the kitchen. She walked in but found no one. The kitchen window was wide open, letting in a chilling breeze. She checked every corner, finding nothing unusual except their cat, Luna, crouched in a corner with its fur bristling, growling as if terrified of something. That evening, Maria tried to talk to Lauren. But when she mentioned Matthew, Lauren quickly changed the subject. She stammered, avoided answering directly, and soon excused herself to her room, claiming she had homework. Her evasive behavior worried Maria even more. Over the following nights, Maria noticed that Lauren's window was frequently open, despite the cold weather. One night, while closing the window, Maria saw strange fingerprint-like marks on the frame. Had someone been inside? Maria tried to calm herself, but these clues painted a disturbing picture. One morning, as Lauren was about to leave for school, Matthew appeared outside the house, waving. Luna immediately hissed, its claws scratching fiercely at the floor. Matthew, seemingly unbothered, smiled and said, "Maria, I brought some toast for you and Lauren." "Thank you, but we don't need it," Maria replied, trying to remain polite but unable to hide her discomfort. Matthew lingered for a few seconds before turning away. Maria shut the door, wondering how to protect her daughter from a danger she couldn't yet name. That night, Maria decided to inspect every corner of the house. Near the kitchen window, she found a strange shoe print. It didn't belong to her or Lauren. Who had been here? And how did they get in? With her fears mounting, Maria realized she couldn't wait any longer. She had to act. Sitting at the kitchen table under the dim yellow light, Maria's face was tense with worry. The strange fingerprints, the shoe print, and Lauren's increasingly distant behavior all screamed for attention, yet she couldn't piece everything together. "Lauren, how have you been feeling lately?" Maria asked gently when Lauren came into the kitchen. "I'm fine, Mom." "Don't worry," Lauren replied, trying to sound calm, but her eyes quickly looked away. Maria studied her daughter, searching for answers in her silence. She decided not to push but felt a storm brewing inside her. That night, Maria stayed up later than usual, determined to see if someone was entering through the window. Around midnight, as the house lay silent, she heard a faint clicking sound from the kitchen. Fear gripped her, but she forced herself to investigate. Walking quietly down the hall, Maria saw a shadowy figure at the kitchen window, illuminated by faint moonlight. It was Matthew. He stood there, seemingly listening or observing something inside the house. "Who's there?" Maria called out, her voice trembling but steady. Matthew flinched and turned, but he didn't appear startled. Instead, a faint smile played on his face. "Oh, Maria. I was just passing by and saw the window open. I thought I'd check if everything was okay." "You're passing by my house at midnight?" Maria asked, suspicion dripping from her voice as she kept her eyes fixed on his every move. "I often take late-night walks to relax." "I only wanted to help," Matthew replied, slowly stepping back. "Don't worry. Good night." Matthew disappeared into the darkness, leaving Maria more uneasy than ever. What was he doing here? And why was he targeting her home? The following morning, while tidying the living room, Maria received a call from Lauren's school. Her teacher, Mrs. Isabel, said Lauren had been skipping physical education classes and often claimed to feel unwell. "Do you think this is serious?" Maria asked, her voice filled with concern. "It's hard to say, but I think something's wrong. You should take her to a doctor," Isabel suggested gently. Her words were a wake-up call. Maria knew she couldn't keep ignoring the signs. She needed to uncover the truth, no matter what it might reveal. That afternoon, Maria met with Rose at a small cafe on the corner. Despite the cozy atmosphere, Maria's heart felt heavy. "Rose, can you explain more about what happened that day? Why was Lauren at the market with Matthew?" "I don't know either," Rose replied, slightly puzzled. "I just happened to see them. Matthew was holding some kind of bag. It looked like medicine or dietary supplements, and he handed it to Lauren. They talked briefly and then parted ways." Maria felt her heart tighten. Medicine? Why would Lauren accept medicine from Matthew without telling her? That night, after Lauren had fallen asleep, Maria sneaked into her daughter's room. She carefully searched around, hoping to uncover something. In a drawer, she found a small bottle of pills with no clear label, only some scribbled handwriting. "Energy supplement, take once daily." Maria felt her chest tighten. She held the bottle, her unease growing stronger. Could this be the reason Lauren was becoming weaker and weaker? She hid the bottle in her pocket and returned to her room. That entire night, Maria couldn't sleep. Questions kept flooding her mind. Who exactly was Matthew? Why had he been at her house in the middle of the night? And what was really inside that bottle? The next day, Maria decided to take action. She visited a neighbor, Carmen, who was known for keeping an eye on everything in the neighborhood. "Carmen, have you noticed anything unusual lately? About Matthew, for example?" Maria asked, trying to keep her tone calm. Actually, yes, Carmen said, lowering her voice as if afraid someone might overhear. I've seen him standing in front of your house at night. Once, I even saw him looking into Lauren's window. But he always acts as if nothing's wrong. Carmen's words felt like a knife stabbing Maria's mind. Matthew wasn't just suspicious, he was actively doing something behind her back. When Maria got home, she saw Lauren sitting on the couch, tired and pensive, her stomach appearing slightly larger. The sight of her daughter like this strengthened Maria's resolve. She had to protect Lauren at all costs. That evening, Maria couldn't stop thinking about everything she had seen and heard. She sat in the living room, turning the small pill bottle she had found in Lauren's room in her hands. The questions overwhelmed her mind. What was this bottle? Was it the reason Lauren's condition was worsening? Maria decided she couldn't wait any longer. She took the bottle to a nearby pharmacy to seek advice. The pharmacist, Mr. Alberto, a kind and dedicated middle-aged man, immediately noticed her anxious expression when she walked in. "Maria, are you okay? You look worried," he asked. "Mr. Alberto, I need your help," Maria said quickly, placing the bottle on the counter. "Do you know what this is?" Alberto picked up the bottle, examining it carefully. He shook it gently to hear the sound inside, then opened the cap and sniffed it. After a few seconds, his expression grew serious. "This doesn't have an official label, and its smell is strange," Alberto said, placing the bottle down. "It could be some kind of homemade dietary supplement, but I can't be sure. Maria, I recommend taking it to a doctor or lab for testing." Maria thanked Alberto and left the pharmacy, her unease deepening. When she returned home, Maria saw Lauren sitting on the sofa, staring blankly at the TV screen. Her face looked even paler than usual, her eyes sunken from lack of sleep, and her stomach seemed larger. Maria sat beside her, trying not to let her worry show in her voice. "Lauren, how are you feeling? Is there anything you want to tell me?" "I'm just a little tired, Mom, don't worry," Lauren replied. But her lifeless tone only heightened Maria's concern. "If you're too tired, I can take you to the doctor tomorrow," Maria gently suggested. "There's no need, Mom. I'll be fine after some rest," Lauren said, quickly getting up and retreating to her room, leaving Maria alone with her growing worries. That night, Maria decided to review the security camera footage she had installed weeks ago. At first, the recordings showed nothing unusual. But then, in a clip from midnight, Maria froze. Matthew's figure appeared clearly on the screen. He had sneaked in through the kitchen window, his eyes darting around as if scanning for something. Then, he stood still in the kitchen, staring up at the staircase leading to Lauren's room. His gaze was calculating and cold, sending shivers down Maria's spine. She fast-forwarded the footage, but Matthew only stayed there briefly before quietly leaving. Maria switched to older footage. In a clip from 2 weeks ago, she saw something that made her heart sink. Matthew handed Lauren a bottle of pills, the same bottle Maria had found in her daughter's room. He said something to Lauren, but the camera angle didn't allow her to hear it. How could this happen? Maria whispered, gripping the computer mouse tightly. Why was Matthew approaching Lauren? And why had her daughter hidden this from her? The next morning, Maria skipped her usual routine at the bakery. She spent the entire morning investigating Matthew. She called Carmen. "Carmen, I need to ask you something important," Maria said, her tone serious. "What is it, Maria?" Carmen asked, sounding worried. "Do you know anything about Matthew? What he did before, or if he has a strange past?" Carmen paused, as if trying to recall. Then she said, "Actually, I remember he once mentioned working in pharmaceuticals. But he's been out of the industry for a long time. Something bad happened, I think, but I'm not sure of the details." Carmen's words only deepened Maria's unease. She hadn't known Matthew had a background in pharmaceuticals, and this made everything more suspicious. Was he experimenting on Lauren? Maria picked up her phone, ready to call the police, but then hesitated. She needed more evidence before taking action. Otherwise, people might think she was imagining things. Maria sat down, her hands trembling. "Lauren, I won't let anyone hurt you," Maria whispered. She didn't know what she would face, but she was determined to protect her daughter at all costs. The next morning, Maria woke up feeling drained. The image of Matthew standing in her kitchen looking toward Lauren's room haunted her like an endless nightmare. She decided not to go to work. She needed time to investigate Matthew and his suspicious behavior further. After Lauren left for school, Maria began searching every corner of the house, hoping to find more clues about her daughter's condition. When she entered Lauren's room, Maria stopped by the window. This window was often left open at night. She ran her fingers along the frame and noticed faint smudges, like fingerprints, but larger than Lauren's hands. Maria's chest tightened. Someone had indeed been in her daughter's room. Next to the window, a small notebook was neatly placed on Lauren's desk. It was her diary. Maria had never invaded her daughter's privacy before, but this time she couldn't hold back. Perhaps this was the only way to understand what was happening. Opening the diary, Maria quickly flipped through the earlier pages. Lauren's entries were steady, describing her daily life at school and small joys with friends. But in the more recent pages, the tone shifted completely. "I'm so tired. I don't want to worry Mom, but this feeling keeps getting worse. Uncle Matthew said I'd be fine. He said as long as I take the medicine, I'll feel better. But why do I still feel weaker? Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night feeling like someone's in my room, but when I look around, there's no one there." Maria felt as if her body had frozen solid. Each line in Lauren's diary was like a puzzle piece, and as they came together, Maria became increasingly certain that Matthew was behind all of this. But why? And how much had her daughter been affected? Holding the diary in her hands, Maria resolved to do what she should have done long ago, ask Lauren directly. But as soon as the thought crossed her mind, she realized she needed more evidence, especially if Matthew were to deny everything. She had to dig deeper before confronting Lauren. That afternoon, Maria met with Sarah, an old friend who worked at the local clinic. After briefly explaining Lauren's condition, she handed over the bottle of pills she had found in her daughter's room. "Sarah, can you help me find out what kind of medicine this is? I'm really worried." "Of course, but I'll need to send it to a lab for analysis. I can't make any definitive claims without test results," Sarah replied with a serious expression. "How long has Lauren been taking this?" "I'm not sure exactly, but probably a few weeks. Her condition keeps getting worse. Maria, I think you should take Lauren to a doctor as soon as possible. This situation can't be taken lightly." Sarah's words hit Maria like a blow to the mind. She couldn't delay any longer. She had to uncover the truth before it was too late. That evening, Maria decided to review more footage from the security cameras. She rewound to recent days, focusing on times when she wasn't home. Suddenly, in footage from one afternoon a week ago, Maria saw something that made her heart stop. Matthew appeared again. This time, he didn't just stay in the kitchen, he went upstairs. He approached Lauren's door, paused for a moment, and then turned as if listening for something. After that, he placed a small package in front of the door and quickly left. Maria replayed the footage over and over, trying to get a better look at the package Matthew had left. It was small, tightly wrapped, and clearly something he didn't want anyone to see. Maria hurried to Lauren's room and searched every corner. Finally, she found a small package identical to the one in the video, tucked away in her daughter's drawer. It was unopened. Inside was a small bottle containing a pale yellow liquid. Holding the bottle in her hands, Maria felt her anger surge. What was Matthew doing to her daughter? The next morning, Maria decided to confront Matthew. She marched to his house and knocked firmly on the door. Matthew opened it, looking surprised but maintaining his usual smile. "Good morning, Maria. You're here early. What's the matter?" "I want to know what you've been doing to my daughter," Maria said, her voice sharp and cold. "What are you talking about?" "I've only been trying to help Lauren," Matthew replied. "She's often tired, so I thought I could help her feel better. By giving her unidentified medicine." Maria held up the package, her eyes blazing with anger. Matthew looked momentarily flustered but quickly regained his composure. "I meant no harm, Maria. I just wanted to help. The medicine is safe, nothing to worry about." But Maria didn't believe him. Despite Matthew's attempts to hide it, there was something unsettling in his eyes. She couldn't let him continue influencing Lauren. "You stay away from my daughter, or I'll call the police," Maria said firmly. Matthew gave a faint, dismissive smile but said nothing. He closed the door, leaving Maria standing there, filled with anger and determination. She would protect Lauren at all costs, and Matthew wouldn't get away with this. Standing in front of Matthew's house, Maria's emotions churned. Her anger hadn't subsided, but beneath it lay fear and helplessness. Matthew still appeared calm, but his actions and words revealed increasing dishonesty. She knew she had to uncover the truth before things spiraled further out of control. Back at home, Maria closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling deeply. In the living room, Lauren was sitting on the couch, engrossed in a book. Looking at her daughter, Maria felt her heart tighten. Lauren seemed oblivious to what was happening around her or was deliberately hiding it. "Lauren, are you feeling tired? I made some soup. Why don't you have a little?" Maria said, trying to keep her tone as normal as possible. "No, thanks, Mom. I'm not really hungry," Lauren replied without looking up. Her daughter's indifferent response only deepened Maria's concern. Lauren, once a responsible and attentive child, now seemed distant. Maria felt a barrier growing between them. Something was going on that Lauren didn't want to share. That evening, Maria sat at the dining table, staring at the bottle of yellow liquid she had found in Lauren's room. It had no label or any information at all. Picking up her phone, she called Sarah. "Sarah, I need your help. I found another strange medicine in Lauren's room, and I think it's connected to her condition. Bring it to me first thing tomorrow." "I'll send it for testing," Sarah replied, her voice filled with urgency. Maria's unease grew stronger. But she knew she had to stay calm to deal with everything. That night, Maria decided to review the security footage again to ensure she hadn't missed anything. When she watched the recent recordings, she noticed something strange. Matthew hadn't just appeared once. Almost every night, he had sneaked into the house through the kitchen window. In one video, Maria clearly saw Matthew carrying a small bag, which he left outside Lauren's door before disappearing into the night. Anger surged within her. How dare he enter her home as if it were his own? Maria slowed the footage, scrutinizing the package Matthew had brought. It looked identical to the medicine she had found in Lauren's room. Her anger turned into fear. Maria had no doubts now, Matthew was doing something to her daughter, and it wasn't normal. The next morning, Maria brought the medicine to Sarah. While waiting for the results, she decided to dig deeper into Matthew's past. She went to visit Carmen, the ever-watchful neighbor. "Carmen, do you know anything more about Matthew? I heard he used to work in the pharmaceutical industry." "Yes, that's true. He used to work at a big pharmaceutical company but was fired a few years ago. I heard it was related to a counterfeit drug scandal, but I don't know the details," Carmen replied, her eyes filled with suspicion. "Counterfeit drugs?" Maria repeated, a wave of worry washing over her. "Do you know what he's been doing since then?" "I'm not sure, but ever since he moved here, he's been living very discreetly. But you know, I don't think he's a simple man," Carmen said, lowering her voice as if afraid someone might overhear. Carmen's words deepened Maria's doubts. If Matthew had been involved in counterfeit drugs, could he still be continuing his old ways? And why was he targeting Lauren? That evening, Maria couldn't stay still. She needed more evidence before confronting Matthew or contacting the police. She decided to investigate around his house. After Lauren went to bed, Maria put on a coat and quietly slipped outside. As she approached Matthew's house, Maria noticed a faint light coming from the living room window. She hid behind the fence, trying to observe what was happening inside. Matthew was standing by a table filled with bottles and tools resembling laboratory equipment. Maria held her breath, her eyes fixed on his every move. Matthew picked up a bottle, shook it gently, and then wrote something in a notebook beside him. The scene confirmed all of Maria's suspicions. Matthew was definitely concocting something, and she couldn't let him continue harming Lauren. Just as Maria was about to leave, Matthew suddenly looked toward the window. His gaze stopped at the spot where Maria was hiding. For a moment, Maria felt her heart stop. Did he see her? Maria quickly rushed back home, her mind racing with anxiety. When she entered the living room, she saw Luna, her cat, sitting on the couch, its fur bristling as it growled toward the door. Maria looked through the peephole but saw no one outside. "Luna, what's wrong?" Maria whispered, but the cat continued growling. Maria walked to the door and carefully checked the lock. Perhaps Matthew had noticed something, or worse, he was planning to act. The next morning, Maria woke up with a heavy heart. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind like a slow-motion film. She wasn't sure if Matthew had actually seen her, but the memory of his gaze sent chills down her spine. Lauren sat silently at the breakfast table, her eyes distant as if lost in thought. Maria looked at her daughter, her heart breaking. Lauren seemed to retreat further into herself, and Maria couldn't bear the thought that she might be hiding something serious. "Lauren, did you sleep well last night?" Maria asked, trying to start a conversation. "Yes, I guess," Lauren replied curtly, staring down at the untouched bowl of porridge in front of her. Lauren's indifferent tone only added to Maria's concern. She hadn't been eating properly for weeks, and her condition was only getting worse. After breakfast, Maria sent Lauren off to school and quickly called Sarah. "Sarah, do you have any updates on the medicine I gave you?" Maria asked, her voice tense with worry. "Maria, I just got the results this morning," Sarah replied, pausing as if choosing her words carefully. "This medicine contains some unidentified ingredients. A few compounds can cause fluid retention in the body if taken over a long period." Maria felt like she'd been struck by lightning. Fluid retention. Could this explain why Lauren's stomach had been growing larger? "Sarah, how dangerous is this?" Maria asked, her voice trembling. "I can't say for sure, but if Lauren has been taking this medicine for a while, she needs to see a doctor immediately. This is no trivial matter." Sarah's words made Maria feel like the world was collapsing around her. She knew she couldn't delay any longer. She had to do something right away to protect her daughter. That evening, Maria decided to review the security footage again. She needed to know more about Matthew's actions in recent days. When she rewound to footage from 2 days ago, Maria saw something that made her breath catch. Matthew appeared outside the kitchen window, holding a small bag. This time, he didn't just leave the bag outside Lauren's door, he sneaked inside. He stayed in Lauren's room for almost 10 minutes. When he came out, he looked around, his expression calculating, before disappearing into the night. Maria felt a surge of anger and fear. Why was he in Lauren's room? And why hadn't Lauren told her anything about it? Was her daughter being threatened? The next morning, Maria decided not to send Lauren to school. She wanted to keep her daughter home to talk to her, but she knew she needed more evidence before confronting Lauren directly. She decided to visit someone who might know more about Matthew's past, Mr. Michael, an older neighbor who had worked in the pharmaceutical industry. When Maria arrived at Mr. Michael's house, his wife, Anna, opened the door. "Maria, come in. What brings you here?" Anna asked, her expression filled with concern. "I need to ask Mr. Michael about a neighbor, Matthew. I think he used to work in the pharmaceutical industry, right?" Maria said. Anna frowned, then turned to call Michael. After a moment, he appeared, his face thoughtful. "Matthew?" "Yes, he used to work in pharmaceuticals. But he was fired for being involved in a counterfeit drug scandal that poisoned people," Michael said, his tone calm but his expression grave. "Counterfeit drugs?" Maria asked, her heart sinking. "Yes. Back then, Matthew was suspected of concocting counterfeit painkillers for profit, but there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute him. However, he was fired, and no one wanted to hire him again," Michael explained. Michael's words struck Maria like a dagger to the heart. If Matthew had done it before, could he be continuing down the same path, and this time, was Lauren his victim? That evening, Maria decided to confront Lauren directly. She sat down beside her daughter, her gaze gentle yet firm. "Lauren, I need you to be honest with me. Have you been taking medicine from Uncle Matthew?" Maria asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Lauren hesitated, her eyes darting nervously. She lowered her head, her hands clasped tightly together. I didn't want you to worry. Uncle Matthew said the medicine would help me feel better. I just wanted to make things easier for you," Lauren whispered, her voice trembling. Maria felt her heart break. Her daughter had hidden this from her out of a desire not to burden her, but taking the medicine had only made Lauren's condition worse. "Lauren, you don't need to hide anything from me. We'll figure this out together, okay?" Maria said, hugging her daughter tightly, feeling her trembling body. But Maria knew this wasn't over. Matthew needed to be held accountable for what he had done, and Maria wasn't going to let him harm Lauren any further. Maria woke up the next morning with a fierce determination. She couldn't allow Matthew to continue hurting Lauren. After last night's tearful conversation with her daughter, Maria understood the fear and pressure Lauren had been enduring. It was time to act. That morning, after preparing a light breakfast for Lauren, Maria said, "Stay home today, sweetheart. I want you to rest. I'm going to meet some people to sort this out." Lauren nodded, her eyes filled with worry. "Be careful, Mom," she whispered. Maria left the house and headed straight to the bakery, where she met Rose, her close friend who was always willing to help. Rose was the first person Maria thought of for support. "Rose, I need your help," Maria said as soon as she walked in. "What's going on?" "You look so tense," Rose asked, setting down a tray of pastries. "Matthew. He's doing something to Lauren. I need more information to expose him," Maria said, her voice resolute. Rose listened, her eyes widening in shock. After a moment of silence, she nodded. "All right. I'll help you. I've always thought there was something off about him." The two decided to visit Michael again to gather more details. When they arrived, they found Michael sitting on a chair in his yard, his expression contemplative. "Mr. Michael, we need to know more about Matthew's past scandal," Maria said without preamble. Michael frowned, then sighed. At the time, Matthew was suspected of concocting and selling counterfeit drugs. Many people who used them suffered severe side effects. However, he denied everything, and there wasn't enough direct evidence to convict him. After that, no company wanted to hire him. Michael's words solidified Maria's suspicions. Matthew wasn't just suspicious, he was dangerous. She had to stop him before anyone else, especially Lauren, got hurt. After leaving Michael's house, Maria and Rose headed straight to the police station to file a report. Maria brought all the evidence she had gathered, including the security camera footage, the strange medicine, and Lauren's diary. "I want to report a man named Matthew. He's been sneaking into my house and giving my daughter unidentified medicine, Maria said to a young officer named Xavier, her voice urgent. Xavier reviewed the evidence, his expression turning serious. What you've brought is very significant. We'll launch an investigation immediately, he said, asking Maria to sign a statement. Maria felt a small sense of relief knowing the police were getting involved. But her heart was still heavy with worry. How would Matthew react when he found out he was being investigated? That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room, staring at her phone, waiting for a call from the police. Luna, her cat, lay curled up at her feet, her ears perked as if sensing something. Around midnight, a strange noise came from the kitchen door. Maria jumped to her feet, clutching her phone tightly. She walked cautiously toward the door, her heart pounding. The kitchen window was wide open again. But this time, Maria was prepared. She stepped back and dialed the police. "Hello, this is Maria. He's here again. Matthew is in my house," she said quickly, her voice trembling but determined. Xavier immediately reassured her. "We're on our way. Stay inside and don't do anything risky." Within 10 minutes, the police arrived at Maria's house. Matthew, who was rummaging through the kitchen, was caught red-handed. As he was handcuffed, he tried to justify himself. "I haven't done anything wrong. I just wanted to help her daughter feel better." But Xavier, after reviewing Maria's evidence, had no doubt. "Mr. Matthew, you're under arrest for trespassing and suspicion of manufacturing illegal drugs," Xavier announced. Matthew became aggressive, struggling to break free, but he was ultimately taken away. Maria stood there, watching the scene unfold, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. She never imagined things would escalate this far. The next morning, Maria took Lauren to the hospital for a comprehensive checkup. The doctors discovered that the fluid buildup in Lauren's abdomen, which had caused her stomach to swell, was due to toxic substances from the medication Matthew had given her. "Thankfully, you caught this early. We'll take the necessary steps to ensure her condition doesn't worsen," the doctor said, his tone calm but serious. Hearing this, Maria felt a weight lifted from her heart. She knew she had made the right decision to protect her daughter. But Maria also realized this was just the beginning. She would have to grapple with the guilt of not recognizing the danger sooner, and Lauren would need time to recover both physically and emotionally. Most importantly, Matthew had been stopped, and Maria vowed never to let anyone harm her daughter again. Matthew was arrested and detained at the local police station. He was interrogated by the investigative team led by Xavier. Even with his hands cuffed and sitting in the small interrogation room, Matthew's eyes exuded arrogance. In front of him, Xavier opened a folder containing evidence gathered from Maria's house. "Mr. Matthew, the evidence we've found is sufficient to charge you. You broke into someone's home and gave an underage girl unidentified medication. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Xavier asked, his voice calm but authoritative. Matthew leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Young officer, you don't understand. I'm not a criminal. I'm a scientist, someone who dares to challenge the boundaries you all impose." Xavier raised an eyebrow. "Challenge? You call endangering a child's life a challenge?" Matthew tilted his head, his voice filled with pride. "You don't see the bigger picture. The medicine I created isn't just an energy supplement. It's a perfect blend of science and nature, a solution to all health problems." Xavier slammed his hand on the table, his gaze sharp. "What you call a solution has caused a young girl pain and long-term health risks. You can't justify that." Matthew remained unfazed and even laughed louder. "They'll thank me one day. This world will recognize my brilliance. People like you are just pawns in a broken system, blocking progress." Xavier refused to be provoked. He stood up, staring Matthew down. "Progress doesn't mean destroying lives. You will pay for what you've done. The next day, Matthew was brought before the local court for trial. The case drew significant public attention after reports of his actions became public. Maria and Lauren were also present in court, still shaken and haunted by what had happened. During the trial, the prosecutor presented clear evidence: video footage of Matthew sneaking into Maria's house, the bottles of toxic medication he gave Lauren, and testimonies from witnesses such as Rose and Michael. Despite being surrounded by overwhelming evidence, Matthew showed no remorse. He stood up to defend himself, his voice full of arrogance. "Your Honor, I don't deny giving the girl the medication. But my intention was to help, not harm. People like me are misunderstood because they fear what I can achieve." The judge banged the gavel, his expression stern. "Mr. Matthew, your arrogance doesn't hide the fact that your actions were illegal and posed serious dangers to public health. Do you have anything to say regarding the charges against you?" Matthew lifted his chin defiantly. "People like you lawyers and judges live in fear and limitations. I'm a pioneer. If Lauren isn't well, it's because her body wasn't ready for the profound change my medicine brings." The courtroom fell silent at Matthew's stubbornness. The prosecutor quickly countered. "Your Honor, the defendant's words are not a defense but an admission. He knew his medication could cause harm yet deliberately gave it to a child." After hours of arguments, the judge declared Matthew guilty of trespassing, providing unidentified medication, and endangering the life of a minor. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison and banned from participating in any pharmaceutical or medical activities in the future. As the verdict was read, Matthew showed no signs of regret. As he was escorted out of the courtroom, he shouted, "I'm the greatest scientist you'll ever know. You'll regret stopping me." Matthew's words were met only with cold stares from the police officers and anger from those present. Maria held Lauren tightly, feeling a sense of relief that Matthew was finally paying the price for his actions. In prison, Matthew continued to claim he was misunderstood. He tried to convince other inmates of his brilliance, even sketching out pharmaceutical formulas on the walls of his cell. But no one believed him. The other inmates viewed Matthew as a madman, lost in his delusions. One day, when Xavier visited the prison to check on Matthew's progress, he asked, "Do you regret what you've done?" Matthew smirked, his eyes full of defiance. "Regret? I regret not having enough time to perfect my medicine. You'll see one day, I'll be recognized." Xavier shook his head. "Your arrogance is the reason you're here. No one can make progress without taking responsibility and learning remorse." Matthew didn't respond, his gaze distant as he stared through the bars. Perhaps, in his mind, the world still failed to grasp the genius he believed he possessed. But for Maria and Lauren, justice had been served. They could finally move forward without the shadow of a dangerous, self-absorbed man like Matthew. Lauren sat on her hospital bed, the morning sunlight streaming through the window and gently illuminating her pale face. After weeks of treatment, Lauren's health was showing signs of improvement. The dark circles under her eyes were fading, and her once weary expression was now tinged with a slight flush of color. Maria sat by her daughter's side, her eyes filled with love yet tinged with lingering guilt. She held Lauren's small hand, cherishing the warmth she had feared losing forever. "Lauren, how are you feeling now?" Maria asked gently. "I'm much better now, Mom," Lauren replied, a faint smile appearing on her lips. "I don't feel as tired as before." Hearing those words, Maria felt a tremendous weight lift off her heart. But the guilt lingered. She lowered her head, squeezing her daughter's hand tighter. "Lauren, I'm so sorry," Maria said, her voice choking. "I was so caught up with work. I didn't pay enough attention to you, didn't notice you were struggling. If I had realized sooner, maybe none of this would have happened." Lauren looked at her mother, her eyes glistening with tears. She grasped her mother's hand and whispered, "No, Mom. I'm the one who should be sorry. I kept it all from you. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I was wrong. The two embraced, tears streaming down their faces, a mixture of love and regret. In the silence, their sobs were soft, but it was enough to convey the depth of their emotions for one another. In the following days, Lauren gradually returned to her normal life. The doctors prescribed medication to help her fully recover and recommended a healthy diet to boost her strength. Maria cared for Lauren attentively, no longer letting work consume all her time. One morning, as Maria was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Lauren walked in wearing her school uniform, her skirt fitting neatly and looking far better than before. "Mom, I want to go back to school today," Lauren said, her eyes bright with determination. Maria turned, slightly surprised. "Are you sure? If you're still feeling tired, we can wait a few more days." Lauren nodded. "I'm sure, Mom. I feel better now. I don't want to hide away anymore. I want to see my friends again." Maria smiled, stepping closer to smooth Lauren's hair. "All right, but if you feel tired, you have to call me right away. Promise?" "I promise, Mom," Lauren replied, holding her mother's hand as if silently expressing her gratitude. Maria walked Lauren to the gate, watching as her daughter headed down the small path. A sense of relief and pride filled Maria's heart. For the first time in weeks, she felt that things were finally getting better. That evening, Lauren sat at her desk, engrossed in writing in her journal. It was a habit she had neglected for a long time, but now she wanted to record her thoughts after the recent ordeal. Date: Today was my first day back at school. It felt strange, but also really nice. My friends asked about me, and I felt cared for. But what I want to write most about is Mom. I was wrong to hide everything from her. I know she's busy, but she's always loved me and worked hard to give me the best life. When she hugged me and cried, I knew how much pain she was in too. I just hope Mom can forgive me for making her worry so much." Lauren put down her pen, feeling a sense of lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. The story of Maria and Lauren teaches us a valuable lesson about love, care, and family responsibility. Sometimes, the demands of work can make us overlook the subtle signs of distress in our loved ones. Understanding and listening are the keys to building strong relationships. Moreover, facing mistakes, being brave enough to apologize, and overcoming challenges together strengthen family bonds. Prioritizing the physical and mental health of our loved ones is always essential.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.